Now we are recording. Wonderful. Share screen. Excellent. Okay, so welcome to our college admissions workshop series, the essay. Today is the topic of discussion. Like I said, my name is Brett, Assistant Director for International Admissions at the University of Rochester. Today we'll just be talking pretty much specifics on the college essay, but we will have other workshop series throughout at least this semester and into the summer. So those will be on different topics. And if you are interested in registering for any of those, you can reach out to me or Sandra, and we can, get you information on how to register for those. Also am recording this today. So for any of your friends that might not have made it on time for the session start, we will be sharing this as well. So absolutely, they won't miss out. Okay. So a little bit about our agenda today. So the primary purpose of course, of the essay itself and the importance it plays in your application, because you'll find that it's something that you really want to take seriously in your application, and because it really shows the most about you. And for us counselors, it is the most entertaining to read because, it's your voice, and we're getting to sort of see that side of you. And that's kind of the purpose and how we are determining, you're fit for the university, but also are fit for you, because it's a two-way street. Also, do's and don'ts in terms of essay writing, things that you want to avoid and things that you should absolutely do if that's in your writing toolbox. Also, I will give some final tips about the essay, and we will finish up with questions in which we will use the chat feature, which you can find at the bottom of your screen. So let's get started. Just as an intro, the college essay is something that, obviously is not required for all university and college entrants and applications. Some institutions do not even require an essay or look at essays. But at the University of Rochester, we do practice a holistic admissions review. When I say holistic admissions process, I mean that we are looking at everything that we ask you for in the common application. So from the part where you put your name and, who's in your family, and to the things that you do and participate in high school, to your recommendation letters, your essay, your scores if you decide to submit scores to us. We are test optional, so just throwing that in there. These are all important parts of showing us your personality and how you are, and what you're interested in. So very, very important to know that this is something you have full ownership of and control over. It is something that, you can't really control once you're in senior year if you didn't participate in any clubs or activities, from 9th grade to 11th grade. You can't go back in time, unfortunately, and change that. But this is something you absolutely can control. You can tell us all about something that makes you stand out. So, you can't tell me what, you can't control what your faculty members might say in your recommendation letters. But this is something that is truly and genuinely uniquely you. And I think that is so important. It's also a great opportunity for you to reflect on your own experience in high school, in activities outside of the classroom. It really gives you time to sort of reflect on what's been sort of important in your life. And that also further shows you as an individual. You can also talk about the things that aren't captured in your application. We all know that the application, it takes a few minutes to complete, and it's a lot of facts about you. You were in basketball maybe for all of freshman year, and you were in, the writing club, and all of these wonderful things. But you can't possibly put everything about yourself in this application. And so this is somewhere you can really focus on talking about a topic or several topics, if you want to do it that way, that are important to you that maybe there isn't a space for on the application, right? So it is very important that you really take into consideration these factors when you're thinking about your essay. So again, with the purpose of the essay, showcasing your personality. I like to say, are you funny? Do you feel like you're a very witty kind of person? Do your friends say you're funny? If you are, that's great. You can absolutely be funny in your essay. Don't maybe overdo it, but you can show your humor. If you're not funny, maybe not the time. Maybe just not, I'd maybe save that for another occasion. But what are you most comfortable with? How do you kind of speak of yourself? How would your friends speak of you? Really show your personality there. And you can show your interests, your background. I always say, I don't suggest writing all about everything that you've done in your life. Like kind of the biography of you, that's great information. A lot of it though, we can see in the application in terms of your activities, your education, what classes you've chosen, things like that. So kind of choosing something more unique is very important. And maybe sticking to a few topics or one overarching topic rather than a lot of small things that can really kind of muddy the essay and make it a little less linear and easy to understand. Make it stand out. Make your application, if you're thinking of a topic, think to yourself first, would somebody else, would my friend be able to write the same thing? Do a lot of people maybe think of these things? Because you really want to ensure that you are being unique, being genuine and showing us something that we don't read about 1,000 times over the application season. So I can tell you right now a few things that don't really stand out, and we'll talk more in length about this later, is that sports. I mean, when it comes to, I really wanted to be on the basketball team, but I didn't make it my first 2 years and I made it my third year. It's not that it's a bad essay. It could be a very good essay, but it's very tricky to make it so. And it's important to make sure that, 100 other people couldn't write the exact same thing as you. So you really kind of want to take into consideration how your experience and what you're writing about is unique to you and not to a lot of people. So it's also an option, you can demonstrate your writing ability, your prowess in writing, especially as it pertains to, the English language. I mean, we're going to look at your proficiency scores. These are required for the most part. So we are going to look at your writing ability, because writing is, like it or not, is a very essential part of the college experience. So, how do you write? And what does that look like? And lastly, determining your fit for the college. So, it's almost like dating, right? I mean, you're interested in us, we're interested in you, we want to meet you and understand, how you are as a person, what do you like to do? How do you spend your time? Things like that. And it's also about you, what are you looking for in a university? Do you want a urban campus? Do you want, we're a suburban campus, by the way, if you didn't know. Do you want, a school that has 35,000 students on campus, or would you like a smaller school? These are things that you can also, depending on what you write about, include in your essay. So we can determine if the University of Rochester is right for you as well. Because ultimately we want to match, right? So who reads these essays? And I've had a lot of students over the years say, yeah, but nobody really reads that, right? Nobody reads that essay. I'm just going to write about whatever. And Believe it or not, the University of Rochester, at least, we read everything. So I did mention briefly about the holistic process that we have. Each and every one of our students that applies to the University of Rochester, everything is read in their application. We take several months over the winter to do all of these app reads, and it is very, very important to know that we absolutely are going to be reading your essay. So it is very important. And for counselors like myself that look forward to the essays the most, it can really make or break your application sometimes. I mean, I wouldn't say that, it can stop it cold, but a good essay can really make your application even more appealing. Than an essay that really isn't well thought out, is poorly executed and written. That can really put a little bit of a damper on it. So something to very much consider. So admissions counselors, we are looking and reading these essays. Department chairs and professors may also read these application essays, especially when it comes to applying to dual degree programs. So if you're interested in the Rochester Early Medical Scholars Program, which we call REMS, one of the most competitive dual degree programs on campus. It's very difficult, or I shouldn't say difficult, but competitive to really get into that program. So those department chairs and folks in the medical center, they are reading these essays as well, if that's something you've applied for. We also have, our GEAR program, which is for engineering, dual degree Eastman, which is for music, and several others. So they may also be reading your essay. So it's very important that you keep your audience in mind when you're approaching controversial topics, politics, things like that, because you don't know exactly who is going to be reading your essay, and you don't perhaps want to come across too strongly in some areas when you're not really sure exactly who will be reading it and how it will be taken. So kind of, you can absolutely talk about something controversial. I'm not advising you not to, but it's something to take very extra special care with. If it's something you're very passionate about, talk about it. That's fine. Just kind of keep in mind that maybe not everyone that reads it may have the same viewpoints. And also be very thoughtful about sharing any personal information. So it's okay that you say your aunt's name is Stephanie and you're talking about your aunt and your relationship with her and perhaps in your essay. But you don't want to share anything that's too personal that you wouldn't be comfortable, reading about from somebody else. So be very thoughtful in what you share, like very personal details. Few things to do in particular. Be yourself, as I mentioned before. You really want to make sure that you're your authentic self, and we're really viewing you for who you are, because that is, of course, only to your benefit. Because you are going to be able to really show us what makes you shine and what makes you stand out. Be engaging in your essay. I always enjoy reading essays that make me think a little bit, show me maybe a perspective that I never really thought of before. So if you can kind of pull and draw your audience in to the essay, that is something that also is very, very well done and well thought of when we're reading essays. Follow any instructions. So if you choose a specific prompt, make sure that you address at the end, that by the end of the essay, you've addressed that question, right? Or that topic. Be sure that, you don't make your essay too long or too short. I've seen essays that are 3 sentences, which is unfortunately just not enough to really get a gist of who you are. But also I've seen essays that were like almost 2 pages long, and we do tend to cut them off at a certain point. You can't write a book, but make sure that you're getting your point across, and it's concise. So kind of rereading your essay and doing some edits will only serve you well in terms of, you know, how your essay reads. Proofread goes right along with that. So proofread your essay by all means, check for, you know, spelling and punctuation and things like that. But more than, you know, punctuation errors and things, make sure that like your structure makes sense. Do you have a really great topic, but it might be derailed a little bit if you start talking in circles, for example, and all of a sudden I'm reading your essay and a totally different topic comes in and I've lost track of the original thought that you were going for. It's very important to proofread in that aspect too. However, don't over proofread, right? Don't edit yourself so much that you lose your authentic voice. Believe it or not, it is very easy to distinguish when a high school student has written an essay compared to their 55-year-old parent. The voices are quite different. And believe it or not, from reading so many essays, we can very clearly pick those out. So you absolutely can have your parents or your guardians or whoever look over your essay, but I wouldn't have them make any substantial changes or anything like that, because this needs to come from you. We want to make sure that it is you we're reading from, okay? Being yourself, you know, I can't talk about this enough, actually. Showcasing your passion for the topic that you choose is very important. So put a lot of thought in what you're going to speak about, because that is going to be very evident when we read the essay is, you know, what is the topic you've chosen? I should be able to read your essay and determine and be able to sum it up and say, Samara is very interested in painting from the Renaissance period, and she talks about how much she loves Rembrandt and this particular piece that speaks to her. I mean, that is really great. And definitely put that in there for whatever topic you choose. Make sure that, you know, we can see why you've chosen it because it's important to you. Demonstrate your personality. Again, if you're witty, be funny. You know, you can put a quip in there. Keep them appropriate, though. I do sometimes see some jokes that I'm thinking, oh, I don't know if this was the forum for that. So make sure if you do throw some wit in there that it makes sense in terms of your topic and really comes across the way you intend it to. Pick a topic that is interesting to you and not us. So believe it or not, as great as excited as we are about your interest in the University of Rochester, and believe me, we are, we don't want to read about things that, you know, that we deal with on a daily basis, perhaps. You know, if you're interested in economics and you're truly passionate about how economics works within like the higher education system in America, for example, that's great. That's wonderful if that's what you're really passionate about, but don't pick a topic just because you think it might be of particular interest to us in terms of getting admitted to the university. So really making sure that it's still about you is important. And it shouldn't be about someone else. If I read an essay, for example, that you talk about your dog Spot, and your dog Spot has helped you through everything and you just love him and he's been in your family for 15 years, that's wonderful. But at the end of the essay, I don't want to admit Spot, right? I want to admit you. So, you know, absolutely talk about the people in your life if that's what you choose and your relationships, but make sure at the end that I'm learning a lot about you. Because ultimately, you know, you are advocating for yourself and showing your fit for the university. So, you know, make sure that we don't want to admit Grandma Edma at the end, or Spot, but you. Here's a nice example of being yourself. If you just want to go ahead and read that, I won't read it aloud. But in just a moment, I'll give you a moment to read it, and then we'll talk about how this really kind of shows unique self. So hopefully some of you have heard of this before. I'm not sure in Paraguay if this is a song you may have ever heard in your life, but we have this song in the US that, you know, we would sing head, shoulders, knees, and toes. And it's just like a little ditty that children would sing, you know, when they're younger. And so this student is bringing a little wit in their essay. They're showing that they're very interested in medicine because they're mentioning, you know, the draw to medicine at an early age, but they're putting it in a funny, witty little way as changing head, shoulders, knees, and toes to very specific medical anatomy terms. So that's something that's unique and we wouldn't see a ton of times. So that's a great example of being yourself. When I talk about being engaging, again, you know, start it off, you know, we really want to draw the audience in, right? So you want the readers of your essay to learn more about you and to think, you know, that you're a great applicant, right? That's the ultimate goal. So start it off with a hook, draw the attention in. So start off with something, it doesn't have to be shocking necessarily, but I've had essays start off with like a knock knock joke or a really interesting fact about themselves. There are lots of different ways that you can create a very interesting hook that will get the reader excited to read your essay. Write it in the first person, please. This is something that can quickly go awry if you're trying to write your essay in the, say for the example, the third person, and it just can get very confusing. And if it is not done in the correct way, it can lead the entire essay just totally astray. So write it in your perspective. It's your perspective that we want in the first place. Use vivid and descriptive language for this. You know, you don't have to crack open, you know, a dictionary and try to use all the biggest words that you've ever seen, because sometimes if there's too many big words, and it's kind of almost a little awkward because you're like, do you talk like that in real life though? But use those descriptors that really make us feel that we're a part of your essay. You know, if you're describing scenery, because, you know, this park is very significant for you, and you have great memories there. Use beautiful, vivid imagery, you know, in your writing. And otherwise, you know, if it's more, you're telling me specifically about a project that you completed and why it's important for you, use descriptive language in terms of, you know, how did you achieve these things? What did that entail? And just make sure that, you know, again, it's not too much about the project and less about you. So including those specific details is very important. Just making sure that you're still not telling me more about the project than about yourself, okay? Admissions counselors, we also don't want to crack open a dictionary, right? I pride myself on knowing a lot of big words because I love to read, and maybe that's you too, and that's wonderful. But I don't want to be reading an essay and be like, what in the world does that mean? I've never heard of that in my whole life. So then I have to look it up. I mean, let's be real, we don't really use dictionaries that much anymore, right? We'll just Google it, which doesn't take a lot of time, which is phenomenal. But at the same time, it's distracting from your essay, right? So if I'm looking up, you know, expialidocious or something in Google, then I'm already starting to forget about your essay, and I might have to reread it and it won't feel the same. So be very cautious of using too many large and complicated words. An example of being engaging here as well. This one is really great. You'll notice that the tone, you know, there's a lot of vivid descriptions here. So talking about rowdy 6-year-olds, you know, we hopefully all remember being 6 and, you know, being kind of rambunctious and having a lot of energy, and also maybe not being the most clean and careful with things. So this person's really doing a great job at painting the picture of their self as a 6-year-old. And this student really talks about their experience. I'm sorry, not as a 6-year-old, as the teacher. So this person was facing a lesson for seeing a bunch of kindergartners that were unwilling to learn and, like they said, uncooperative. So, and just kind of going into more of a description on, you know, they were surprised by this complete change from what they kind of assumed the classroom would be like. So that is very engaging, because it calls to us, like, we remember how we were when we were 6, right? So it kind of sets that contrast on to their point of what they saw instead of what they were expecting. So that's kind of an interesting take as well. So in general, this is a very, very big point, is, you know, let's be more engaging with our audience. Don't just kind of narrate, but try to pull us in. That's very helpful. These are a few examples of that. The first one, you know, a student moving from Japan to the United Kingdom. Obviously, that's got to be like such a huge change, right, in their life. And it brings you in to think more about what must that be like if you haven't had that kind of an experience. The second one, you know, talking about biology and going into especially marine biology, it's kind of interesting, because why is it going to be so special for them? Also, we hear a lot of folks that are going for careers that their parents are in, which is a very great thing. If they've inspired you and you're interested in being a doctor as well, that's wonderful. And this student talks about knowing that there are difficulties that lie ahead in that passion, that field, but still, despite that, being very genuinely interested. That is also a very interesting topic. So I won't maybe go through all of these, because I'll talk all day, but those are a few examples. This is an example of what I talked about with needing a dictionary. So I don't know how many of you know what conspectus means. I can tell you, I don't really know what that means. So you can kind of determine it from this, maybe this context, but I don't know. There's a lot of big words here. And it just kind of throws the reader off, and it really kind of hurts the tone of your essay and sort of the flow. So try to steer clear of this. Following instructions, we touched upon. Responding to the prompt that you're given is very important. If, you know, you're writing a topic, you chose the essay topic of, you know, Frederick Douglass and his life works, and how you connect to the things he's done. Make sure at the end of the essay that you've answered that, right? Otherwise, it'll just be kind of bizarre and confusing, and we won't understand kind of where you're coming from with the topic you've chosen. Stay on the topic. Try to be concise. Like I mentioned before, you don't have 5 pages to write. The best essays, I think, are typically within a page. So you don't want to be too short. You don't want to be too long. So it's important to sort of get your point across in a very concise way. It helps if you narrow your focus if it's too broad. If you're looking at a very kind of wide-ranging subject, if you can kind of zoom that lens in a little more, that may really help with your essay. So sometimes too many ideas can just kind of muddy the essay. It can make it confusing and hard to determine what is, you know, what's really important here. And we don't want to kind of mine through that. So if you can kind of keep it keep it there and keep it narrowed down. That is really helpful. Editing and proofreading, a little more on this. Again, spelling, grammar don't have to be perfect. I mean, we hope that, you know, it's evident you've read through your essay once or twice to get any big errors out of there. But, you know, it doesn't have to be perfect. Spell check is not proofreading, despite what many might think. Spell check's great for your words and how you've written them, but it's not flawed. It is very flawed, I should say. And it doesn't do anything for your punctuation or run-on sentences and tone of voice and other things. So not something to think about. Use of college names, steer far clear of that when it comes to personal statements. You can confuse yourself and accidentally write MIT or University of Rochester if you're applying to somewhere else. And that's something that when you're an admissions counselor or whoever else is reading your essay can really detract from the experience of the application. So really that's only something that should be used when you're writing the supplemental essays, the reasons why you want to come to Rochester. Make sure it's the correct name, it's the correct spelling. Also something, a detail that a counselor will pick up on really fast. And making sure your point is clear again, making sure it's concise, you're getting your point across. What do you want us to learn about you? For things we don't want to do, don't choose a cliche topic. Like I mentioned at the start, you know, I'm super proud of you if you made it in the team finally in the junior year, and you'd wanted that all along. That's great. But think about how many other people may also be writing the same exact essay. And is it unique enough to you? Am I learning more specifically about you, or could I say that that situation applies to 1,000 students? That's really important. So something to think about. Also plagiarizing, of course, just don't do it. That's just kind of something you should be attuned to already in school, but plagiarizing, you know, whether or not you will get caught is kind of irrelevant. You will get caught in college for doing something like that. So just don't do it. Don't get in that habit, because it will come down eventually, and not be good for you. And don't stress. You know, if you're applying starting, you know, late summer this year into the fall, make sure you give yourself some time. You know, you're thinking about the colleges and universities you're interested in. Make sure you give some time to sort of relax, think about your topic, and give yourself some time to write it. You know, I say this as a sometimes procrastinator. Try not to procrastinate. It can be very challenging not to, and to enjoy things before you know, you really sit down and write these essays, but try not to put it off too much. It will just increase your stress. And then some of these cliche topic examples we talked to is, you know, your trip or vacation to Bali. That's great, but what is so unique, you know, about that? My game competition. I think sports is maybe the realm where I get the most of these kind of cliche things, but you can absolutely write a phenomenal sports essay. You just have to look at the focus, the lens on which you're viewing it. Your sports injury, don't repeat stuff that I'm reading in your activities section, or that I'll see in your supplement, or your faculty might write about you. Try to pick something that we haven't seen yet. Plagiarism, again, use your own voice, cite sources, write it yourself. Very important. Don't stress too much. Make sure it's grammatically correct. Make sure you have enough time and the energy. You know, I can tell you if you're looking at a bunch of different universities and colleges, it can be very daunting if you write all these essays. So we're sort of towards the end of things. You'll find that it is a little more difficult than you think. And something that you want to take a little more time for, so you don't have to feel stressed and rushed. So these are just lastly some tips. This is my last piece for you. Tips to writing a great essay. Feel free to, of course, write any of these down if you'd like. But again, start early, brainstorm ideas, follow the instructions for any of the, essay prompts that you may have. Choose a topic that's important to you. Keep your focus narrowed, making sure that lens is, really on what's important in the essay. Start it with something attention grabbing if possible. Use really great language, but not overuse of large words or too much. Just think just enough. Reflect on how you were impacted and what your feelings are in terms of your topic. Maintain your voice. Proofread, and also in proofreading, if somebody else is reading it, make sure that it's still your voice in the end. Get feedback and, have fun with it, because this is your opportunity to kind of shine and show yourself. So with that, I am just going to put up this question slide here. This is our admissions contact information. So if you ever have any admissions questions, you can reach us here. Also, if you want to write this down, my email address is Brett, it's BRETT .Luther, LUTHER, @rochester.edu. And I do read for Paraguay. So I have all of South America except for Brazil. So I would, if you do apply, I should be reading your applications. So definitely, don't hesitate to reach out with questions. I'm going to take some here in just a moment. I'm going to go over into the chat section. And essentially, this is our beautiful campus. It's a nice picture of it from the air. You'll see the beautiful Genesee River, which is one of the few north flowing rivers in the world, which is pretty cool. So we are about 10 minutes, we're about 3 kilometers, I should say, outside of Rochester, the city. So we are a part of Rochester, but we're not an urban campus. So we are suburban, and it is a lovely campus. I highly recommend you take a virtual tour online, which is really kind of gives you a taste, especially right now when we can't really travel. So that's our contact info. Now I'm going to go ahead and take some questions here. So I have the chat up, and I apologize in advance if I can't get to everybody's question. And Sandra, feel free to, if you want to unmute, and also you have any feedback on any of these two, you can also chime in. But students, please keep muted. I'll be sure to answer as many as possible. So from Lucas says, do you think it's okay to write about very random things? So completely unrelated to academics and activities. Yes, absolutely. So that's kind of like the overarching point. It doesn't have to be about your academics or the things in your activities list, especially as we can see those already, right? So if you have a really random subject that isn't random to you though, because you're passionate about it, please write about it. Yeah, absolutely. And take some brainstorming time to really think about how, it would be best to sort of put that forward in an essay. Let's see. I have a question. I'm not sure what the for the deadlines, what this is in terms of applying. Typically, if you're applying for early decision, typically you need to have your application materials in sooner. And regular decision, you have obviously a bit more time. You can see all of our deadlines right on our website. I don't know that with everything sort of with the coronavirus, and I want to speak to that in a minute as well, just a little bit about, everything's kind of in flux right now in terms of dates, like what all the certain dates are. So, but I would definitely refer to, our email addresses, again, our contact information when it comes closer to time, and we can tell you what those are a little better, and keep up on our website too. Let's see. There will be Q&A sessions. Yes. So thank you, Sandra, for jumping in on there. So we have questions now, more specifically for the essay, please. We will have other virtual events that you can find on our website for other topics, also general information sessions. We have a lot of those coming up. So that's where you get a lot of information about specifically the University of Rochester. But for time purposes today, I am just sort of going to be answering a lot of questions specifically focused on the essay, okay? Let's see here. So if you want to hope to enroll for fall 2021, you can start applying this summer. We will open the application. We do take the common application and the coalition application. So you can do that starting this summer. And I do encourage you to apply a little on the earlier side of things, just even if you're not deciding to apply early decision, because it gives you more time to complete your application, ask for those recommendation letters from your teachers, and really kind of focus on how to make your application better. So give yourself some time if you can, okay? I will also be sure to write my email. When I'm done with the questions so that everybody can see it very clearly, I'll make sure that I do that. So good, that's a good point. GPA does have an impact on the admissions process. So we will, of course, if you choose to submit test scores as well, we'll take those into consideration. However, again, we're looking holistically at everything. So I'm not going to touch more on that because we're really trying to narrow this to essay questions. Let's see here. Should we keep ourselves neutral regarding political issues or things related to different ways of thinking like religion? It depends. If you feel very passionate about a subject, I don't think that it's wrong to speak to that because it's your voice and it's your experience. I would just avoid maybe coming off too strong about it. Don't use, foul language, of course. I mean, obviously. And try to sort of keep it as neutral as possible, but you're certainly welcome to put your opinion in because this is your essay. But just be mindful of who's going to be reading it. Okay, I'm getting a lot of non-essay questions. Let's see here. Rochester requests just a personal essay or asks for essays where you have to answer a specific question? Great question. Okay, so we do ask students to do a personal statement. So there is typically a few different topics if you're applying through the common application that you could choose to speak upon, and that's it's kind of though your creative voice is what's most important. So making sure that if you choose an essay topic that you are speaking to that. Actually, I apologize. That's for the supplemental essay. Your personal statement is about whatever you want it to be. But your supplement is the one where you're going to choose to speak on a topic or one of the topics, for example, is about research. If you've done any research, you can tell us a little bit about it. But you also want to tell us, why the University of Rochester in your supplement. So yes, we do really encourage, really thinking about your essays. Let's see. Minimum or maximum of words. Off the top of my head, I'm not 100% sure what the maximum words are, but I can tell you that you can't write more than a page to a page and a quarter, I think typically. We want your applications, your essays to be as concise as possible. So, and that just takes a lot more effort, and it also can make it more difficult for you to get sort of your point across when you have so much in your essay. It does not have to be related to what you want to study. So again, the essay, an ideal essay should be about a page in length. Don't make it too short or too long. What's most important, though, is really not how long your essay is, but are you getting your point across? So that's something that you can really trim down in the sort of the proofreading process, like we talked about. Making sure that you are absolutely getting to the point of your essay, and we're not left wondering after, what did I just read? Because that happens to me sometimes. Do we need just one essay with one theme? Again, you have sort of a personal statement that you can write whatever about whichever topic you like, and then we do have a supplement which is more tailored to a specific idea or question, and you want to answer that prompt, and also within the context of the University of Rochester, and sort of why this will be different at the U of R, what your topic is about, whether it's you really want to do research, and you're talking about the research you've done, and you want to tie it in with how the University of Rochester is a tier 1 research institution. You can do that, but again, yeah, so you'll have a personal statement, and you have the supplemental essay. Okay, and so I think with that, let's see here. I'd like to invite Sandra back on. Sandra, are you able to unmute yourself? Maybe not. Let's see here. So I'm going to talk just a few minutes about, I know I've gotten some COVID-19 questions. Okay, here, I can unmute you, Sandra. There we go. I just want to kind of briefly talk just for a couple of minutes about COVID-19, because I know as juniors and seniors in high school, you're just as impacted, if not more so, than a lot of folks surrounding this time. So I was talking to Sandra about, Paraguay, and how you're kind of also like me, I'm in my home right now. I'm unable to work in the office. So yeah, we are working from home, right, Sandra? And so it can be a little stressful of a time. It's different. You're probably doing all of your classes online, things like that. But we want you to know that, we are dedicated to supporting our students, current students, and incoming students. So we are doing kind of everything we can to try to make it so that, when it comes to I-20 processing and things like that for our seniors that are attending here that may have been accepted, we really hope to get those out to you sooner than later, so that you have as much time to prepare as possible for interviews and things like that. We have a dedicated website on our page for surrounding COVID-19 and sort of the steps the university is taking to ensure the safety of all of our students, staff, and faculty. So that's important to kind of keep an eye on as well. We are in a very heavily impacted place in terms of our state. So New York is the most heavily impacted. However, most of that at this point right now is in Manhattan, which is about 6 hours drive from campus. So definitely we're on the outskirts, and we have COVID definitely in the city of Rochester. It just hasn't been terribly overwhelming yet, which is good, and we're hoping that stays on the lower end, and that that we kind of flatten that curve. That's kind of the goal here. So I also wanted to send a shout out. I apologize, there's so many students that I cannot see you personally, Alan, but I wanted to give a shout out to our friend Alan, who is somewhere in the audience, who is our handler, one of our handler award winners, scholarship award winners this year from Paraguay. So Alan is just an outstanding student, and Sandra can speak to this as well. really did a wonderful job with putting together a stellar, application and making sure that his essay in particular, was very well written and showed, himself in a unique way. And, this is the most competitive scholarship at the University of Rochester. It is for full tuition. So Alan had to undergo, weeks of this process in which he interviewed and kind of waited. So I want to say congratulations to Alan for that. Sandra, would you like to say anything? Okay. Well, I am true to my word. I am going to go ahead and put this in the chat for everyone to see. This is my email, and it is brett.luther@rochester.edu. Please feel free to reach out to me with any questions you have. If you are interested in attending another session, perhaps on a different topic that we are having, or a general information session, those are the ones that are more specifically about the University of Rochester in terms of our academics, our student life, our research opportunities, all of those things. I highly encourage you to register for those. You can do that online. I think Sandra, you're back, so if you want to chime in, feel free. But thank you so much for being here today, for taking time out to share this together, and I hope that everybody stays well and healthy in these tumultuous times. Try to dedicate, your time to your schoolwork and things that make you less stressed, and we'll get through it. And I hope to see your applications for the fall. And besides that, I just want to say thank you so much. And I guess that concludes everything for us today. Yay. All right.